All right, I think we can start while people are filing in. I'm Emily Hughes. I'm the head of marketing at Mobilize, the host for today. Couple things before we jump in. First, we are going to record this. So we will send out the recording later today. So if you have to hop off early or if you want to share it with someone, you will get the recording in your inbox. Second, please feel free to ask questions. You are all muted and your video is off, so don't worry about that. But you can ask questions either in the chat or in the Q&A feature. I'll answer some of them as we go along, but I'll also ask them to our amazing panelists afterwards. We're really excited to have our friends at Democracy Alliance here today, as well as our partners at the National Education Association. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Seki, who's going to introduce everybody.
Thank you so much, Emily, and thank you to Mobilize for putting this together. My name is Seki, and I work as Investment Services Director at the Democracy Alliance. And I'm honored to do this webinar today with our friends at the NEA. I've spent some time in the NEA family in the organizing shop, and we continue to work closely with the NEA to promote democracy and equity in all aspects of this crazy 2020 year, and with an eye to the future. The Democracy Alliance, as most of you know, is a donor collaborative involving our labor partners, foundation partners, and individuals. We strive to collaborate progressive investments for greater impact. And in 2019, without any idea what was coming in the COVID world, we thought it was critical to prioritize a set of digital organizations and initiatives that appeared innovative, that appeared to add new capabilities and resources for our movement partners. We conducted a landscape assessment and vetting process, and Mobilize was one of the groups that we selected as an investment priority for 2020. So we've been driving donor attention to Mobilize, and we're honored today to join NEA in introducing their work to a large set of movement partners. So welcome to all of you. I'm going to turn it over to Jocelyn to introduce Mobilize and then move on to the NEA team. So thank you to NEA and thank you to Mobilize. Jocelyn?
Thanks, Seki. Well, welcome everyone. We're excited to do our presentation and webinar today. We'll start just with some basic introductions and then just general agenda. We're going to talk through how this whole pivot to working virtually went. So going virtual, getting creative, empowering your members, and then overall being data-driven. And then we'll talk a little bit at the end about how you can use Mobilize to actually do fundraising as well. But to introduce myself, I am Jocelyn Strauss. I'm a Senior Client Success Manager here at Mobilize. I live in Washington, D.C. with my husband and 2 kids and pets, as you see here. And I have been at Mobilize for nearly a year and a half now. I have a background personally in advocacy with 6.5 years in organizing, as well as data and tech management at Everytown for Gun Safety and Moms Demand Action. And I'm going to kick it over to Katrina to introduce herself.
Hi, yes, I'm Katrina Mendiola with NEA. I've been with NEA for about 6 years, but long before that and at NEA have spent an entire career doing political and organizing work. So happy to be here today.
So we're going to start with just going virtual. I'm going to talk a little bit about Mobilize, introduce you to Mobilize, and then I'm going to kick it over to Katrina to talk about how they went virtual, and we're very successful. At Mobilize, we are dedicated to connecting mission-driven organizations and supporters to make the world more just, inclusive, and democratic. We know that organizing is hard work and that there can actually be a lot of tedious tasks that are associated with it, which takes important time away from the relationship building that organizers really do best. That's why we're so focused on making sure that it's easy for you and your organization to drive more action more easily to achieve your missions. We focus on this in several ways. With Mobilize, you have one singular platform that you can use to host your events, your digital actions, and promote your partner organizations or endorse candidates, which is definitely the theme right now. Your Mobilize event feed allows you to easily share your events and actions with your supporters with just one place for them to look for all those events. And it seamlessly integrates with CRMs like Van. It's great that supporters are signing up for events, but we want them to continue doing that. So we want to help them keep engaged. And we do a lot of work around the actual supporter side. So how your volunteers are experiencing their sign up experience. We are consistently working on the platform to make sure that they are able to find those actions and that their events or actions are meaningful to them. We have things like automated confirmation and post-event communications that allow you to not only capture attendance and feedback, but also allow your supporters to do self-confirmations. And we find that this platform-wide actually reduces the flake rate or the no-show rate by up to 25%. And then finally, just by being a part of Mobilize, you can actually tap into what we call the Mobilize network effect. There are thousands of promotable organizations on the platform, and you too can opt into being promoted. So your organization can have your events promoted by other organizations. I like to say that it's the network effect really just allows you to tap into new types of volunteerism and volunteering. So you're not only able to have your events shared out by other organizations, which allows you to dip into pools of volunteers you may not have access to normally, but it also gives your volunteers the opportunity to do new types of volunteerism by just promoting events onto your feed. And in the move to remote lifestyle and virtual organizing, we saw across the platform that volunteering did not decrease, and instead it really continued to thrive. Folks really wanted to volunteer and take action, and especially in a situation where you're really at home, some folks are with their family, some folks are alone, they want to feel like they are part of something. So during this time, we've really seen some of the most creative organizing tactics come out as people are really redefining what it means to be an organizer, what it means to do organizing in a virtual first world. Oh, that went, yeah, nope, sorry. Transition strange. With Mobilize, you have access to creating virtual events. So we've always had virtual events on the platform, but with 2020, we really focused in on making sure that these were very accessible and robust for this type of organizing. So there are scheduled virtual events that you can create. This is a type of event that really occurs at a specific date, at a specific time. It just has a virtual location. You all actually signed up on a scheduled virtual event on Mobilize. Whether or not this is a Zoom meeting or a virtual phone bank link, it's really a way that folks can engage in an action at a specific date and time. The online actions are a more digital-based event, so this allows you to empower your volunteers to take action on their own time. So this can be anything from maybe a recorded training or maybe a virtual phone bank that's available all week long that you just want folks to be able to sign up for and take action on their own time. But it's essentially a very flexible way that you can empower your volunteers to take action with you and really be creative with this type of event. And Katrina's going to highlight some of the ways that NEA and affiliates have used these. And you can take advantage of all of those automated nudges that I mentioned earlier with the virtual events. So you can reduce your flake rate with the confirmation process. You can actually get attendance so it not only possibly automates the event closeout, which is sort of an amazing thing as an organizer to think of, but you also get a whole bunch of qualitative feedback about the volunteer's actual experience at your event. So you can always be taking that feedback and iterating on your program. I'm going to kick it over to Katrina now to talk a little bit about how they did that.
Great, thank you, Jocelyn. You know, NEA, like everyone else, has had to shift to virtual communications and virtual organizing during this time, and Mobilize has really enabled us to do so sort of seamlessly and effectively. So we do several types of events over at NEA. We have public-facing events, and then we also have member-only events that we're able to schedule both of these using the Mobilize platform. You know, sometimes these events are responding to real life events and news cycles. So we need to be able to stand these up and promote these events very quickly within a group of members or a group of supporters. And Mobilize really has made it easy to schedule and promote those events. So, sorry, you advanced the slide on me. I wasn't expecting that. No, that's great. So yeah, so, of course we use it for RSVPing and for tracking signups, but the automatic reminder part of the Mobilize experience has also been really great. I mean, just as an example, you sign up for a Mobilize event, you get a text message and an email with just a calendar invite in it, which makes it that easy for me or anyone else to simply put that particular event in whatever calendar you're using to keep yourselves organized. So it's really seamless and really easy, not only to communicate to members and supporters to participate in something, but the functionality of the reminders and the ability to make sure that you're getting all the updated information for such events is made a lot easier through Mobilize. All right. So we've actually had a lot of success with Mobilize, like I said, both internally and externally. And one of the things that has enabled us to have a lot of success is promoted events. So we have gone through events, and for our purposes, since I'm in the campaigns and elections department and we're in electoral year, these are part of our election member engagement work that we do. We select events that we promote amongst our members that they can join. You can put in your zip code, you can find events near you, you can go by topic, you can pick all kinds of things to filter out the types of events that you would like to join. Members can sign up for those events directly from our website, and we are able to track them and get that information back in the van that they've participated in those events. And so far, we have been able, through this function alone, to capture about 4,200 members who have participated in about 7,300 shifts just for the Biden campaign to this point. Like I said, our interest here is clearly electoral. You can promote really anything. If you have a partner organization or a campaign that you want to support, you can make that part of your promoted events. For us, obviously, it's the it's the Biden campaign, so that's what we've highlighted here.
I mentioned earlier, we have seen at Mobilize a huge amount of creativity in the way that folks are organizing virtually. Here you can actually see how many different types of events that have been created in 2020 that are virtual. I personally love that there are virtual barnstorms out there. My favorites, though, are the happy hours, the trivia nights, and the community get-togethers that have really helped provide a space for folks to feel like they're a part of something, all from their home, all virtually, and still really growing that community organizing. So utilizing these types of virtual capabilities, your supporters have many ways to take action with your organization. And this data, as Katrina said, just flows into your CRM integration, or you can simply export it out as needed. You can use virtual events for your panels, town halls, meetings, trainings, phone banks, really any virtual-based action or event. Online actions allow you a huge amount of flexibility to provide your volunteers with actions that they can take at their own time. So again, like recorded trainings are a really great example. Facebook Live videos that have happened in the past. And then you can use online actions to easily recruit your volunteers to grow, say, like a texting team or a phone banking team. I've seen a lot of people actually using it as a sort of pledge to volunteer on a weekend of action. Maybe you don't have your events up for that weekend of action yet, but you know you're going to be doing that. You can grow that pool of people immediately, re-engage them later, because all that data is going to be flowing into your CRM. And the petitions, they're really new. They're actually new this week, but they allow you to promote important causes and issues and send a signal to the public of opinion. You can take that and say, hey, elected official, we've got 10,000 folks who support this cause, corporations, organizations, you name it. And Katrina.
Yep. So we've, like I said, we've had a lot of success with this platform, and we have been able to recruit for some fairly large events. You know, and some of this, you know, you can see here the numbers. We had 40,000 for a returning to school webinar or town hall. We had a town hall where we featured Joe Biden, and you know, more on our COVID-19 advocacy. You can see the numbers here. You know, we've had a lot of success, and I think there's a few keys to this success. I think, you know, one, obviously we do have a large membership to draw from, but really, like I said before, being able to quickly tap into topics that are timely is really key. That was as you see this webinar that has 40,000 participants, we were very quickly able to put together an event, tap into something that was timely and important to our members, get that out to as many members as we could to have the opportunity for them to participate in this webinar. And it resulted in a very large event attendance. So large, in fact, we had to schedule a second one. And the other thing that we have done with our Mobilize platform is integrated it to the other tools that we use. So not only do we send Mobilize links out by email, which of course is the easiest way to do this, but you know, as we all know, email is always challenged by open rates. No matter how much you may be beloved by your membership or your supporters, people get a lot of email. So we've taken advantage of two tools that we use regularly to also send out information and the links directly to members and supporters for different events. One, like a lot of other people, we use Hustle, the peer-to-peer texting tool. We can drop a Mobilize link into a script and just text the information and the link sign up directly to our members. We've also recently adopted Outreach Circle, which is a relational organizing tool that we've had a lot of success with. And we can, again, very easily drop a Mobilize link and create an event in Outreach Circle where it automatically generates a different type of notification to members that there's something happening that they should check out on Outreach Circle. And then they simply see it's an RSVP event, and then they can RSVP directly from there. So we also have created a system where our affiliates have direct access to being able to use Mobilize and schedule their own events. There's been a lot of success there as well. I mean, obviously we are focused on more national issues and national campaigns, but every state affiliate and in a lot of cases locals have a varied use for Mobilize and the type of events they want to promote. We've had some really interesting and creative ways in which to do this. As you see here, the Fight for Funding petition that was stood up by our Michigan affiliate. Our Massachusetts affiliate has used this extensively for a lot of things, including their Ed Summer campaign, and sometimes just for social connection. They had a movie night where they promoted through Mobilize. And then, of course, PSEA, our Pennsylvania affiliate, used this as an RSVP for people to say that they were going to vote by mail. So now it created a list of members who RSVP'd yes, that they simply are planning to vote by mail, but created a list for us to be able to follow up with them in various ways, and also sends them an automated confirmation to remind them, hey, in case you haven't yet, don't forget to get your, send in your mail ballot. So those confirmations and those notifications that are automatic, are really great and programmed in and can complement, whatever else you want to do with the list, if it's hustle or phone banking or, other communications.
Empowering your members. Our focus at Mobilize is always to provide you tools that make your organizing more streamlined and empower your volunteers and supporters to take meaningful actions. So we build a lot of functionality around that supporter side, as I mentioned earlier. Some of the tools that are accessible to you, just highlighting some, there are a lot of them. We build tools like the Bring a Friend Ask. So you see the image here. This is really something that can be turned on per event, and it's basically a post sign up pop-up. So you sign up for the event and you have this little pop-up that says, bring a friend. We actually see across the platform, 13% of all signups come from just that, just people bringing it and sharing it with their friends. Another tool that can be used as needed per event is our event suggestions. So this is another post sign up pop-up that encourages supporters to sign up for additional shifts with just one single click. So you can sign up for all those events. You don't have to fill in your information again. And this feature is actually responsible for 12% of all the shifts on the platform. So without you having to do any additional organizing, you can actually be suggesting events to your supporters. You can also just depend on their social network to bring in additional supporters and volunteers. And then one of my favorite tools that we see used in a wide variety of ways, and Katrina is going to talk a little bit more about it shortly, is supporter-driven events. So we have a tool called Event Campaigns that allows your supporters to create events on behalf of your organization. So it's almost like a templatization of event creation. So you can templatize the event creation process, rest assured that folks will be creating the events that you want them to be creating, but also empowering them to have these very professional looking events. They can manage them on their own. They only have access to their event. So it's like they kind of have a Mobilize dashboard, but it's just their very own version. And it's a really great way to engage your supporters, empower them to be organizers in their own right. And it's a really great way to tap into their social networks. So you have your members, and then you can tap into the social networks and bring in new supporters this way. We also see that it's a really great way to tap into areas that geographically you may not be organizing in, whether it be hard to break ground in those areas, or maybe you don't have the capacity as an organization to be organizing in, say, rural areas. We actually saw we ran a report about half year, so I'm not going to say as of right now, but about around July, we found actually that most, if only, the events that were in Alaska and Hawaii were volunteer driven events. So they're organizing, they want to organize for you, and in areas where you don't have the ability to do that organizing, this is a super great tool to empower your volunteers to sort of climb that ladder of engagement. Over to Katrina.
Yeah, so a couple of things on the Bring a Friend. One, we use it for pretty much every event. Look, everyone knows someone, right? We all have at least a friend or two that you can be like, hey, come to this thing. I know you'd be interested. But we've also tried to take advantage of the fact that educators are seen as great messengers in their communities and have really great connections within the community and that they work and live. So the Bring a Friend portion of the Mobilize platform has been really successful and really important to us. Like I said, we put it on virtually every event that we do and encourage members to invite fellow members to all kinds of, all the various events that we do. We have telethon halls, we have phone banks, we have hustle banks, we have webinars, we have virtual rallies, but that is a function that we enable in pretty much every event. And as you can see, once you encourage people to use their own networks, you're able to expand that reach. And then go ahead and go on to, so the supporter hosted event was It was actually a pilot program for us in Arizona. I think with anything else, when you're starting something new, we were like, okay, we're going to test this out in 1 or 2 areas. We're going to see how it goes, and then figure out if it's been successful for us. So in Arizona, we enabled supporter hosted events. So this really enabled super volunteers to, like Jocelyn said, organize their own events through Mobilize. It still required an approval process that the staff at the Arizona Education Association had to approve the event. So you don't lose control of the events that are being scheduled. So you can make sure that they are on topic, that they work for the organization, that they're doing the right kind of outreach, whatever that may be. You still have that level of approval built in. And in Arizona, they were trying to collect signatures to get on the ballot with a education funding measure. As a lot of folks probably know on this call, gathering signatures is a face-to-face event. There's really no way around that. And, even in Arizona, when they tried to move their signature gathering to be online, they were told no by the state Supreme Court. So it had to be a face-to-face event, which meant dozens of very small events across the state to collect these signatures. But in the description of the Mobilize event that AEA sent out, they could actually describe what the safety measures were. So you were able to add that extra level of security to people who want to support, who wanted to sign the petition, but were otherwise maybe feeling apprehensive of engaging face to face. In the description of the event and the invite for it, it actually described what those safety precautions were going to be. So people felt safer, they felt more secure, all because we were able to provide that kind of information through the Mobilize event that was scheduled and sent out. And as you can see, they gathered all the signatures they needed to get on the ballot, and they're going to be on the ballot this fall.
Seriously, one of my most favorite creative, like going virtual, but yeah, it was a really wonderful way to see folks really being creative with the way that they could do ballot signature collection in the COVID world.
I did see a couple of questions in the chat on this one. It says, is the approval process done through some sort of role permissioning? So every event still has to go to whoever the in-state Mobilize administrator is, and the Mobilize administrator is the one who approves events. And then how is information shared to volunteers, email, RVP? Well, once they created an event, they could share it on their own social media platforms, whether that be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is that they use. Those super volunteers could put that information directly on their social media. They could text it to friends. They could ask friends to text it to friends. So they were able to get the word out without needing an official like AEA email to go out, which sometimes, as folks know, that process can be, it just takes a little time.
There's one more question, Katrina.
What sort of training did vols get for making hosting events? Well, so this ability was really only given to sort of like the super volunteers. So the trainings were able to be small enough that you had like maybe 5 or 6 people at a time, that the Mobilize administrator was able to walk them through how to schedule the event. I don't, we probably would have to do a different type of training if that expanded. But since this was sort of focused to like the super volunteers and the high level activists, the group was automatically a little bit smaller.
And we do from time to time collaborate with like, if NEA had like a lot of these volunteers, we would definitely do a collaborative training as well.
Yep.
We're gonna finish the rest of the, I think Emily is keeping track of questions. We wanna make sure we get through the rest
Great.
of this, but I am super glad that there are questions, and just keep them coming. We've got a couple in Q&A and we've got a couple in chat. We will happily go back and dig back into any of this. Thank you for the questions. So we have just a couple other sections to get through, and then we will be happy to answer lots and lots of questions. be data-driven. So data-driven organizing. Mobilize is a tool that integrates, as I've mentioned before, with many of the CRMs and ECRMs you may already be using. They're pictured here, but we additionally, where we don't integrate seamlessly, we plug into your digital stack very seamlessly. So Katrina talked a bit about using those event links and sending them out via Hustle. Along with the integrations, we offer an actual stats page. So you can see a couple screenshots here. I took these from NEA. I love the giant blue purple map. These are all of the shifts that NEA has had. And this is an all-time image, but you can see that in the stats page, you essentially get some immediate top-line data, some data visualizations, and you can always use our export functions to dig a little deeper into the data, whether or not you're using integrations. These exports are going to have all that volunteer shift feedback, so all that qualitative information that volunteers are sharing with you. It will also have just a little bit deeper dive into the data, stuff that we may not be moving over into your CRMs. I'll kick it over to Katrina to talk a little bit about NEA data.
Yep. I mean, yeah, one of the reasons we decided to engage with Mobilize was the way the data was syncing for us. One, just on the most basic level, it syncs with Van. And I think anybody on this webinar can attest to the pain that after event data entry can be trying to get that in a timely manner so that you can then follow up with those members who participated in something and ask them to do something else. Well, instead of having to do that level of data entry, you know, that data automatically syncs so we can find those members again. And if we want to ask them to do something else, then we have the ability to do that because we have their information right away. So, you know, and it's not just being able to retarget, it's also, like Jocelyn said, to get the qualitative information back from them. So after any event, any participant gets a text message asking them how the event was, and it is an opportunity for that participant to provide feedback on, you know, what they liked or didn't like about that particular event, and really helps us to be able to, you know, make any changes or, you know, adjust any events going forward. But I think one of the biggest things that, again, we use for pretty much every event and has been really powerful for us is the ability for the re-engagement of members. So after a shift is completed, that member, if you schedule a follow-up, that member can get a list of suggested events to participate in the future. And so you can seed in whatever those events you want to be. For instance, we are getting ready to start a series of weekly phone banks. If we have a member who signs up for one phone bank, then clearly they are more likely to participate in future phone banks. So when they finish that first phone bank, it automatically is going to send them a notification and ask them to sign up for future events. It's been a really great tool to get members to, you know, to continue their activism and their participation. Whereas otherwise, you know, again, we're all practiced in, you know, the volunteer recruitment phone banks and emails, and we still do those things too, but Mobilize has also helped us generate a more consistent audience for, to be able to go to for volunteering.
So finally, last section, we'll end on fundraising and then do some question and answers. So along with our data-related integrations, you can easily integrate your organization's donation page with Mobilize. Once this is set up, it's going to work a lot like that Bring a Friend asked or the event suggestions. It's something you can turn on or off. It's a post sign-up pop-up. And it can be used strategically per event. So some events you may not want to be asking for donations, others you may. You can configure it to collect small dollar donations or just do a redirect to the donation page. What I love about this is that we find that 20% of folks who are actually asked to donate actually do in fact initiate that donation, with an average initiated donation of $26. So we've seen a couple organizations actually fundraise enough money through this feature that it offsets the cost of social media ads, which allows them more space for more social media ads. Depending on your organization, sometimes your email team may be focusing on more emails around fundraising than maybe emails around organizing. So if you're able to pull in that money through your organizing, you may get more space on your email schedule. You may be able to get more social media ads, which in turn is going to get you more volunteers and more shift signups. So it's a really great way to turn your volunteers into your donors. And the data sort of proves like folks do want to make those small dollar donations if they're asked. They're very happy to do that. So with that, we've got time for questions. And I know that there were some questions, and I know that Emily has been monitoring those for us.
Yes, thank you. And keep the questions coming. You can put them in chat or in the Q&A feature. Most of these are for you, Katrina, just giving you a heads up. First one, let's go all the way back to where you were talking about making events either available to the public or just to your members. Can you provide some more details about how exactly you're able to do that?
A lot of that is just list pulling and targeting. You know, if a member chooses to share an event outside of, you know, NEA membership, you know, we can't stop them from doing that, and not necessarily that we would, but a lot of it, you know, we have several different types of lists that we work off of NEA. We have obviously our membership lists, but then we also have broader lists of education supporters. So really it's really at the front end for us of who we target with the event information.
Great, thank you. And then you also talked about, you had a slide about Outreach Circle and Hustle and how you use them with Mobilize. Can you walk through an example kind of highlighting how you use all of them in combination?
Sure. I'm trying to think of one of our national days of action and which one would be the best to highlight. So just as an example, we did a National Day of Action for voter registration back in July. We set up the event through the event RSVP through Mobilize. And then we used Outreach Circle to post the RSVP event. Now, through Outreach Circle, we post the RSVP link. However, we do encourage the sharing of the event, the friend-to-friend, member-to-member sharing. We encourage that to go through Mobilize because we get the direct event RSVPs rather than having them try to share the event via Outreach Circle, which is a different thing. So that is one of the, so they can sign up there. They will automatically get sent the event information from the Mobilize platform, and then they can use that to share with their friends and invite other people. So that's how we use Mobilize together with Outreach Circle. With Hustle, whenever we do an event like a National Day of Action, you know, we'll send an email and do a social media post with the Mobilize RSVP information. And that gets us a good number of volunteers, but we always want to follow that up with a hustle to a potential volunteer universe. And, you know, we're simply informing them about the event and inviting them to participate on the day. And we are able to directly text them the link through Hustle so that they don't ever have to leave their phone if they want to RSVP for a particular event.
Great, thank you. One more question, but as we're talking, feel free to drop them into the chat or the Q&A. We still have a few minutes left. Jocelyn, NEA has really capitalized on town halls and webinars, among other online actions, but I think they're some of our best use cases for town halls and webinars. What other online actions are you seeing people using that are being creative and impactful?
Yeah, I personally love the online action event that's using a URL redirect. So Katrina mentioned the PSCA, and I shared their event feed. It's a public event. You can see that they have made use of essentially the government's vote by mail page. They've plugged it into that event. You click on that, you get redirected to that page. So that's an external page. So it's something that they're not able to actually see if you actually did it, but through the post shift communication, you're able to actually follow back up with them, find out if they did, find out how their experience was, and essentially automate that event completion through that process. So I see folks using it. I think Facebook live videos are really, really popular. So it's something that you could have as maybe a scheduled event when it's like going to be happening, but they sort of exist in perpetuity. So sometimes folks aren't able to actually take action at that time. You can actually, after it's over, create an online action that redirects to that Facebook URL, and then folks can watch that on their own time. The online action actually allows you to let your volunteers pick a time or take action immediately. So the example with the register to vote by mail, that's an action immediately. You click that button, it takes you to the URL. But a lot of folks make use of actually allowing their volunteers to pick a time. So maybe providing recorded trainings, a text bank or a virtual phone bank that you don't have like a shift for, you just want people calling at some point during the week. It allows your volunteers then to actually pick their own sort of shift, so to say. So I could find it floating out, you know, in the wild. I'm on my lunch break perusing through Facebook and I see, oh, that looks really cool. I have 20 minutes on my lunch break. I can't make phone calls right now, but I can pick a time that works for me in the future. And then it essentially just becomes a scheduled virtual event, but your volunteer has been empowered to schedule themselves into their own shift rather than you sort of prescribing what times. So I find it to be just like a really flexible way to offer up events to your volunteers. Some organizations put podcasts on there, all sorts of things that you can just sort of make your members aware of, make your supporters aware of, give them as an option. And then again, you're collecting that data. So it's super easy then to re-engage the people who listen to the podcast and say, hey, we have a new podcast, or I saw you registered to vote by mail. Did you get your ballot yet? And it allows you sort of bucket those areas of interest. Maybe they did a training, but they haven't signed up for any shifts. You can then recruit them to potential text bank or phone bank shifts that you have down the line.
Great. A couple more questions came in. Katrina, more questions on volunteer hosted events. What coaching did you give to these super volunteers? And then how did they return feedback or participant data to NEA?
So I'm going to start by saying Arizona was a little bit of a unique situation to begin with, and it was actually part of why we started the pilot there. Because of all the teacher walkout and ballot initiative work that had been done in 2018, there had been through that cultivated a cadre of super volunteers who've been really active since 2018. So there was sort of a natural community of these super activists, super volunteers that had already been sort of built and cultivated over time. So I fully acknowledge that it was a little bit of a unique opportunity, but that doesn't mean you can't create that within your own organizations. It's more about giving those folks a holistic opportunity to learn about just organizing. And then this is one of the tools that they can use. So I think that's a really important way to look at that, is that these aren't event organizers. These are activists and supporters who have networks of people that they want to engage, and this gives them an avenue to do it. And there was a very, you know, distinct and discrete campaign in which they wanted to do this work in, where they had spent some time growing some community. I will also say that, you know, having the luxury of working with educators who are some of the most creative people I have ever worked with in my life, was definitely a plus. They come up with organizing and engagement tactics that I sometimes would never even thought of. So they got really creative about the things that they were doing in order to engage volunteers, but then also engage the public.
Great.
And I'll really quickly just add, there's a question on the data and feedback. That's all there for NEA. So that's going in a van, that can be exported. That doesn't get siloed anywhere. It is absolutely available to your admins.
Perfect. A very timely question about Zoom fatigue. Have we seen any specific strategies to deal with those sorts of issues? For example, have you tried using Mobilize to organize telephone-based conference calls instead of Zoom video meetings? Katrina,
yeah.
Jocelyn, I leave it open to you.
I mean, we do it for all kinds of meetings. I mean, for us, it's a great way to get event in action, participation, and sign up. What that event in action can be is limitless depending on how you want to use it. Phone events, Facebook Lives, like Jocelyn talked about earlier. We did a lot, and I think a lot of people are doing sort of Zoom parties where it's still a Zoom, but you actually get some interaction with people instead of just like, you know, having sort of a sit and get. So I think there's a lot of room for creativity.
Yeah, I see a lot of folks do like optional Zoom for like a phone bank. So like you could make calls on the phone bank, not log into the Zoom, but if you do want to feel that like community feeling, you can pop into the Zoom and then you have like a space where you're doing Zoom things and also doing the action. So it's like kind of an option for folks who maybe would prefer to just make those phone calls on their own and then report out after they're done.
But they can also be used for if you're trying to build a social network or a social opportunity. You can schedule a movie night like our Massachusetts affiliate did, where again, you RSVP'd through Mobilize and they sent you the link through Mobilize, but then, you know, the movie night was not necessarily hosted on the computer or Zoom. It's wherever you're showing or broadcasting the movie. And similarly, happy hour type events, you know, again, I realize a lot of that is Zoom, but it's a different type of Zoom. It's not a sit and get, it's an opportunity for people to socialize and connect with each other.
Great. I think also Jocelyn mentioned petitions, and I know Katrina, you guys have used petitions, and those don't require Zoom at all. It's a very low lift way to collect information on your members or supporters and then re-engage them down the road.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I think those are all of our questions. We can end a couple minutes early. I just want to say thank you so much to Katrina and Allie. You guys are dream partners and we're really proud to support your work this year. And then thank you to Marco and Seki for your leadership and your collaboration on this. Here's some contact information for NEA and for Mobilize and some resources, including you can get a free Mobilize account, a starter account, and organize 5 events on there just to try it out. The link is right there. We will also send it in the follow-up email with the recording of this webinar. Thank you, everyone, and we will talk soon.